Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Triple Option Podcast. I'm your co-host, Sherun Douglas, along with Nate Autry and Avi Dingery. Today will be an NFL-only episode. We'll be doing a recap of Week 12 of the NFL season. We'll be doing Week 13 predictions, as well as potential awards races, and seeing how we did last week in our picks. Now let's get to the Week 12 recap.
All right. So this was certainly quite an interesting week around the league.
I'd say most of the games weren't too impactful necessarily. We already covered some of the Thanksgiving games, but other than that, Rams Packers. I think that was a big game within the NFC. Just try to test it out, see what the dynamic is within that side of the league. So
I think that was a big win for the Green Bay Packers. I was a little surprised to see how the Rams performed. I thought they were going to be a lot more into this game. Obviously, the score is 28-36, but they score a touchdown to field goal in the fourth quarter when the game is already over.
yeah,
So,
and that was my reasoning for why I thought the Packers would win in our picks last week is while the Rams definitely have more talent, I think to make again just call back to the same NBA reference. I think when you take the Brooklyn Nets for example, very talented, but didn't have much time to gel together as a team. The same thing with the Rams. Aaron Donald and Von Miller, they both had okay subpar seasons for the type of talented athletes that they are. I don't think that's a matter of lack of hard work. It's just you need time to gel with new players. So I could see this Rams team succeeding later in the playoffs, but I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah, honestly, chemistry is probably a real issue on that team. There's when you bring in personalities like Von Miller or especially Odell Beckham, who, even though is quite unfairly criticized by the media, he is still a superstar wide receiver with a superstar attitude. It's going to take some time to adjust in the locker room and just coming out and making sure he's actually integrated into the offense. I think this is a big game in that sense, but it's also a big game for the Green Bay Packers to improve to 9-3, and coming off of
mm,
a bad loss to the Vikings, I think it helps them get back into their groove and potentially make the NFC Championship game again.
and it's interesting. I think the loss of Robert Woods kind of shows how much of an impact he had on that team. They haven't won a game actually without him so far. So I think while a lot of the stats and receptions and touchdowns and everything have been going to Cooper Cup, I think losing Robert Woods and seeing how they performed recently kind of shows how important he was to his team. He was drawing coverage and allowing Cooper Cup to be in single or sometimes double, but often giving him good looks. And so I think teams are kind of recognizing that, like you said, Tarun, Odell Beckham isn't fully gelled with his team yet, and so they're not respecting him as much, and they're able to shut down Cooper Cup. So
Yeah, and keep in mind that Odell Beckham Jr. is coming right off of injuries, so regardless of his talent level, it's going to take some time to get back to how he was performing beforehand. Moving on to some other games in the NFL, what the hell do you think happened to the Chargers? This is a team a lot of us were hyping up going into the season because we were all very impressed with what Herbert showed us going into the year. They just lost to a Broncos team that threw for 129 yards, rushed for I think around 140 total. And I think, in my opinion, the main catalyst for why the Chargers have been struggling. Justin Herbert has made some silly decisions and has thrown some costly interceptions, but I think it's just inconsistency in the run game. This past game, Austin Eckler averaged 2.6 a carry. Like, you're not going to get anywhere with that type of run game.
Honestly, coming into the season, even back when they did have Von Miller, I thought this Broncos team would be a playoff team just because of that elite defense. And even though Von Miller is gone and this team really doesn't have an identity right now, they still have an elite secondary and a very good D line. And this game, they were able to shut down Austin Eckler. They were able to generate pressure on Justin Herbert, who is a sophomore in the NFL. So he's not like a 15-year vet and immune to pressure or anything. And he had some costly interceptions during the game. And just he didn't play up to his standards with throwing two
Yeah,
touchdowns but two interceptions, and he wasn't really finding his targets. Like Mike Williams only had 4 catches. Keenan Allen, even though very consistent, still got his, but a lot of his guys just really didn't play like they usually did, and that's also a result of him. So they really keyed in on him and got him to be neutralized.
I think another guy who kind of underperformed would be Mike Williams. You know, he had a long of 13 yards. He's obviously their deep threat, and so when he's not able to get long downfield receptions, it kind of allows teams like Denver to go and press them, force them to make short throws. I think that coupled with a struggling run game is what allowed Denver to hold this Chargers offense, which we've seen be pretty powerful this year, to only 13 points.
Yeah, I also think when it comes to the Broncos side specifically, if you look at a coach like Vic Fangio, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. He was obviously hired because of his defensive prowess, right? And you've seen that like in some games throughout this year. Obviously, there's been some inconsistencies. Say, take this game for example. Patrick Surtain the second had 2 interceptions, which for a rookie is pretty hard to do to get 2 interceptions in a game. I think that while a lot of Broncos fans have been calling for Fangio's head at least earlier in the season, I think he's earning some more respect within the fan base for at least keeping this team more competitive, even if the opposing teams aren't playing as well as they should. Because if like, I'll wrap it right here. So like the rest of the schedule for the Broncos is pretty tough. So you have the Lions, assuming that's a win, that's 7-5. Then you have the Bengals, the Raiders, the Chargers again, and then the Chiefs. If they perform decently well, they could finish 9-8. I think. Yeah, they could finish 9-8 or 10-7, which would be a successful season. I think for a Broncos team that ever since Manning left has really struggled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're also, this is a big divisional win for Denver. So this kind of puts the AFC West is very even right now. You got 3 6-5 teams and 1 7-4 team. So this is a big win for Denver going forwards. It gives them momentum, keeps them in it for the playoffs. We'll see what happens the rest of the season.
Yes.
Yeah. Some other games.
Moving on to a game that many of us didn't really expect to be such a close one. The Buccaneers and the Colts, as Carson Wentz shines, throwing for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and surprisingly 2 interceptions, while Jonathan Taylor is still electric.
On the other side of the field, though, you have Leonard Fournette, 100-yard game, 3 touchdowns. He was a beast.
Yeah, this is
Go ahead.
quite an interesting game. Carson Wentz, although he threw 2 interceptions, was pretty good for most of the game, and I really felt like this is what he was brung in to do, to be somewhat of a playmaker on this offense and let Jonathan Taylor work. As if you look through the receiving yards, most of the players who got involved are tight ends and the running backs, and they really got to their offensive spots. But on the other side, the Bucs really just ran the ball. Like Brady did not have a very good game, even though Gronk was electric. Leonard Fournette just was the Bucs offense, and that's very clear to see from the stat sheet and when you watch the game. Most everything, every reception, handoff was all going to Leonard Fournette. You can really see that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't want to get too off track here, but do y'all know if Ronald Jones II is in a contract year right now, or?
I think he might be in a contract year right now.
Because I was about to say, I think he's in his 4th year, and if Leonard Fournette is playing well, do you think he leaves?
He most definitely does, because
He's a very talented running back.
Yes. Okay, I have pulled up his contract, and he is set to be a unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. So yes,
Interesting.
so he
Yeah.
most likely will leave. And
Yeah,
given that he's not a first-round draft pick, he won't have a 5th-year option. But that running back room is certainly quite interesting to see in the Bucs locker room, because Leonard Fournette is only 2 years older and still proven to be an elite running back for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on a couple more games and move on to some more Week 13 stuff. Browns Ravens. a weird game to say the least. Baker Mayfield, I believe, right under 550% when it comes to pass completion percentage, around a little under 250 yards, 1 touchdown. So like a subpar day, some would say. The run game was nowhere. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb both struggled compared to that Ravens defense.
And on the
We
other side of the
can't.
ball, you have Lamar Jackson, who has a extremely confusing statistical day. I mean, he throws 4 interceptions. He's 20 for 32, which is not horrible. He's four who has thrown 4 interceptions. He's the leading rusher for this Ravens team in both attempts and yards, with 68 yards on 17 attempts. It's just
Their leading receiver is Mark Andrews.
the tight end. Most of his receiving yards came off of crazy circus plays. With if you've seen the clips, it's just Lamar Jackson just stepping back and heaving it downfield. It's not very conjoined, if you will. It's like not very well executed passing attack. It's just
Gutsy game for the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens, but a good
Yeah.
win, especially in a very tight division. A very tight division, especially right now with the Browns only being 6-6 at the bottom of the division. That would still put them in the playoff race, while teams like the Bengals are only a game behind the Ravens, who have struggled for a good chunk of the year.
I mean,
Yeah.
despite the struggles, they're still 8-3. I mean, they're top of their division, AFC North, 8-3.
They're top of the conference.
Well,
Yeah.
they're one of the top teams in the conference. I think they're set
They
to
are
be
top
the
of the
2 or 3
conference.
seed, which is pretty impressive.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure they're the top team in the AFC based on record alone, because a lot of the
Based on
AFC's
win
coming kind of.
percentage.
Yeah, the
Based
winning
on win
percentage.
percentage, they're the top team. So if they are the top team, because I want to look at this game from two perspectives, for both the Browns and the Ravens, right? So from the Ravens' perspective, you're 8-3. At face value, it seems to be a very successful season. But if you're Harbaugh or anyone or a Ravens fan in general, are you concerned that maybe like the 8-3 record creates like a false confidence when like you just got a lucky win off of a 4 interception performance by a quarterback? Like, do you think this Ravens team could get too mentally comfortable?
I don't think so, personally. Just because this defense has been the thing that has really worked out for the Ravens this year. They're currently top 5 in every defensive category. Even though Lamar Jackson has been pretty terrible in many games, or just subpar, he's still able to get the job done and be electric when time is needed. However, looking to get a little bit off track, if you look at the Ravens' next few games, they're set to play the Steelers, the Browns again, Packers, Bengals, Rams, and Steelers again. All teams with above 500 records, and most of them which are currently playoff contenders or Super Bowl contenders. So down the stretch will be a very big time for the Ravens, especially fans and organization, as there's a chance they could go from the current 1 seed to out of the playoffs, or really proving themselves as a true contender.
Yeah, but you were saying how the defense carries their team. Isn't that kind of a mistake as the Ravens? Like you have you have the most athletic quarterback in the league, who when he isn't panicking can be a respectable thrower. I think people who call Lamar Jackson a running back often overreact, but isn't that kind of a mistake on behalf of the Ravens to kind of
Well,
keep Lamar Jackson unactivated, and so
well,
when you need him most and he might be cold?
well. I mean, that's not exactly what I meant. I meant to say that the Ravens defense has been like the key component to their success when Lamar is having an off night or he throws 4 interceptions in a game. When Lamar is playing well, this Ravens team does look very good. But that Ravens defense has been quite stout this year. They have one of the best linebackers in the league, and Patrick Queen, one of the better secondaries, a very good D line. They're a very good roster defensively all around, and it's really been like consistent for them. That's what I meant to say. Is like they're banking on that. But yeah, it
Yeah.
is kind of an issue if Lamar is
Yeah.
like this.
I think this game does prove that they do have potential. If a team's able to go out, have an uninspiring performance from their quarterback, and still get the win, I mean that bodes well for them going forwards. Because obviously Lamar Jackson has too much potential to have 4 interception games like just over and over again. I mean, you look at um. Okay,
Like this,
wait.
Yeah,
this isn't
Why
like
did I just
Zach
blank? Okay,
Wilson.
wait. Give me a second here. I just blanked.
yeah. And, like
Why?
while you I go ahead, Nate.
I just lost the train of thought. I want to cry.
Yeah.
Okay, while you recollect what you
Oh,
were
oh my
saying.
God, I can't believe this. No, okay, that's what I was thinking about. When you look at Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he starts out the season extremely roughly. He's throwing multiple interceptions per game, and now he's kind of turned it around, and the Chiefs have a little bit more momentum going forward. So
Well, the Ravens kind of the opposite. Like, look, Lamar Jackson's first 5 games, he has 3 interceptions. Not great, but like manageable. His last 5 games that he's played, he has thrown 9.
yeah, what I'm saying is like, as if a team like if the Ravens are able to like weather a rough patch from their star quarterback, better times will be ahead.
So you're kind of saying like, if he's kind of hitting rock bottom, they're still winning. Once he
And they're
rises,
still
this team
winning.
will be
It's
much
good for
deeper.
them. That's a good sign for them. Exactly.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And let's focus on the more Brown side of this story. So the Browns, as a franchise, obviously haven't been very like famed. The
They've been famous.
coach,
Infamous, if anything.
they've been very infamous for losing. The coach Kevin Stefanski last year was seen as like the latest savior of Cleveland after LeBron James. But this year obviously hasn't gone in hand. Do you legitimately think he gets fired if they don't make the playoffs?
I hope not. I don't think that makes sense. I think there's
It's a
been a lot
stupid
of
move because like
confusion going on in the Browns. It's a yeah, they've been really weird this year, to put it simply.
I don't think the Browns' success, like failures, would be pinned on the coach, Kevin Stefanski, rather than it being pinned on one Baker Mayfield. Because Baker has not lived up, or he hasn't been amazing as he was projected to be, and he isn't. There are talks about him flatlining as a quarterback, that too in a contract year. Like, just for comparison, currently Baker Mayfield, like 11 games into the season, has 11 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. His rookie year, he played 14, had 27 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. He's kind of been flatlining, and that's kind of a concern. And I think what happens is the Browns realize this. They may not trust Baker Mayfield, and they either let him go in free agency or they tag him and trade him for one of the many quarterbacks in the league who are unhappy with their current situation
but
and
who would
want
they
good
get in
contenders.
free agency if they let
Hmm.
him go? Like,
No, they would probably look up in the draft. That's what a lot of things have been looking towards. They could try to draft a Kenny Pickett or a Sam Howell because they're kind of falling, or maybe tag Baker, and trade him for a Russell Wilson or a Aaron Rodgers if those front offices are looking for like a quarterback compensation. But
And I will say one thing just to defend Baker Mayfield a little bit. He has their offense in general for the Browns has had to deal with a lot of injuries. I mean, they've had Kareem Hunt out for the majority of the season. He's just not coming back. Nick Chubb has been out for time to time. I mean, I remember just like what seems like the other week, it was Dearness Johnston starting for the Browns. But that's a name I've never heard before, even though he's been in the league for 3 years. It just shows you that when you don't have good running backs backing you up, I mean, just look at the Seahawks right now.
oh yeah,
yeah, I think Brown. Let's wrap this up real quick so we can move on to other sections. But I think Browns fans are kind of being really impatient. It's 1 year of Baker Mayfield's career. He overall has had a fairly solid career. He's a good quarterback. It just sometimes you have down years, and when your run game isn't there, you cannot expect that much from your quarterback,
Exactly.
especially in the modern end. Okay, I say we move on to
wait,
Week 13
real
predictions.
quick,
Yeah.
sorry, so
Let's have
really
some.
quickly, if you are to compare Baker Mayfield's like the numbers of the first 4 years to Drew Brees, arguably one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and you compare them side by side, they're identical. They were very similar situations in a run-heavy team that underutilized big wide receivers, quarterbacks with injury concerns, and in contract years they were let go and then proceeded to be amazing. So I feel like Browns fans shouldn't let go of Baker Mayfield, but there is some concern to be there. But yeah, moving on.
Okay, I'm gonna speed run some of the games we didn't talk about that much. Steelers Bengals. Joe Mixon has an amazing day. Anyone else have anything to say?
I think that should be about it. Other
Uh,
than Steelers choke it last second, Seahawks choke it last second.
Panthers. I said Steelers Bengals. Wait, what?
Yeah, see, no, the Steelers looked horrible out there. Ben Roethlisberger is a statue. I think you could I think you can like pick up a random nursing like a nursing home employee, and put him in a Steelers uniform, and they'd be able to move better. He's just terrible. He's
I
gonna
mean, it's
get
not like it's a new thing. It's just being highlighted because his passing isn't
yeah, that is
as
true.
good as it's been. I mean, I remember the clip last year of him trying to avoid a sack, and he just no brutal. Panthers Dolphins. Cam Newton, absolutely brutal. 5 of
This is
21,
what I was
92
saying.
yards, 2 interceptions.
It was not
He has
good.
a
This is what I was
quarterback
saying
rating.
last
He has a
week.
quarterback rating of 5.4.
I remember I was saying this last week. It's like I don't think it's because Cam is necessarily a bad quarterback. Obviously, like you don't want a 5 quarterback rating. But like one, Joe Brady's offense is fairly complex compared to other offenses in the NFL. If we look at Cam Newton's first in Carolina, their entire offense was give the ball to the most athletic player on the field, Cam, and we run the ball and let him make maybe 1 to 2 reads, and then he runs the ball. Brady's offense is a lot more like is a much more pro pocket passer than to Cam Newton's liking. So like and I think Cam Newton will be able to adjust to it. It's just gonna take some time.
Yeah, the Panthers have been
Mhm.
one of the weirdest teams in the league since that 2015 season where they just went 15-1. They've never really made any progress as well as like regressed. It's kind of been a weird, awkward
And
position.
it's only gonna get worse going forward with Christian McCaffrey's injury yet again. Next game probably to pick on real quick. Titans Patriots.
Mac Jones.
It's kind of weird if you look at this game on paper. They had similar yards gained. It's just Titans could not score. They could not punch it
Yeah,
in.
and that's where the running game comes handy.
Yep. Mac Jones
Let's
is a
get
good
on
day
the
again.
predictions.
No, I gotta get the rest of the games through, and we gotta get fast.
Yeah.
Eagles
Easy.
Giants. Jalen Hurts.
Sucks.
Ugh, not good. You got 3 interceptions. Did not perform well.
Yeah. Falcons,
Um,
Jags. Cordell Patterson is a monster. 16 carries, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also very active in the receiving game. And the Falcons take a good quality win over a terrible team, and still look to make a playoff spot.
all I will say for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is me being an Ole Miss guy, Laquan Treadwell, a guy who's been on the just practice squads all around, is he's finally getting his chance. He was a leading receiver for this game, 4 touchdowns, 53 yards, but overall not too good for Jaguars. Jets Texans. Somehow the Jets win. They look ugly. I personally don't like Zach Wilson as a starter. Mike White's obviously out with COVID, but it's not going well. And Houston just struggles to score. It looked like this game was going to be brutal for the Jets in the beginning, but then they pulled away at the end. Yes, I was watching it. I'm an Elijah Moore fan. Don't criticize me.
Vikings,
Vikings,
49ers. Sorry.
Vikings 49ers. The San Francisco wins, but at what cost? It almost seems like with Deebo Samuel being injured and being likely out for a week or two. And Deebo Samuel is their offense. I feel like at this point, he's running, he's receiving, he's doing it all for them. I mean, and just in this game alone, he has 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I know oftentimes college football when there's a lot of injuries on, it's often the strength and conditioning coach's head that's called for first. I'm wondering if that's happened in San Fran yet, or if that's about to happen.
I don't know. They have had a lot of injuries, like at the very beginning with the very beginning of the season with Raheem Mostert and then Trey Sermon. Actually, is Trey Sermon injured or is he just
Injured.
non-factor? He's been injured.
The Niners have like a curse of injuries upon them for the past 2-3 years.
Oh yeah, I remember it from the past years.
Every corner is like dead. Their running backs tear an
Listen to
ACL.
this report.
Yeah, let's look at their
49ers
injuries.
Vikings injury updates. Debo Samuel, Fred Warner, Trey Sermon, Dre Greenlaw exit the game.
Dang.
Just brutal. And then the Monday Night Football game, Seahawks versus Washington Football Team.
I have no idea what
I
to
think
say.
Pete Carroll's getting fired.
He should. He's been there for too long.
Hey, let Avi talk about this.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go on a
Presidential
little rant.
Seahawk.
I'm gonna talk about Washington for a bit. Their defense looked very good. It was a very good outing for them. Terry McLaurin, who was pretty active. Antonio Gibson was a monster on the ground, even though he was being force fed the ball. Taylor Heineke had a good game too.
J.D. McKissick being
J.D.
himself,
McKissick was J.D.
randomly receiving the ball out of the backfield. Somehow ends up with 2 touchdowns on the day.
That's what he does. So it's
I
annoying for fantasy owners.
I find him so funny for some reason. He has like no stats, but he just consistently gets touchdowns.
Yeah, well, Seahawks
He's the
are
tight end of running backs.
Oh,
this maybe
let's relax, Darun. It's time.
the Seahawks are currently the 4th worst team in the league, record-wise, and have the 4th pick in the would have had the 4th pick in the draft, but no, they gave it to the Jets, who have the 5th pick in the draft, which is
For who? What'd you
for
trade with the Jets for?
Blitz Boy, Jamal
Oh,
Adams. Crazy sad about this year. The last time there was
most
a team,
trading safety in the NFL.
no, the last time there was a team in the top like 10 or like no, the last time a team had 2 back-to-back picks in the first round was 2000 with Washington. This year there are 3 teams that have that. The Jets with 4 and 5, the Giants with 6 and 7, the Eagles with 9 and 10. But yeah, the Seahawks suck. Pete Carroll needs to get fired. Honestly, the team should blow up. I don't see a future with what we're doing right now unless we fire Pete Carroll, bring in a much better coach, and just honestly just trade the dead weight. Like I don't think we can carry on about Bobby Wagner, the best linebacker in the league. I think it's time we free him. We can get value for him. Russell Wilson. There's this team is like in the most awkward of positions, but I do want to bring up a comparison that I saw a while ago. The Mike McCarthy Green Bay Packers of the like late 2010s, like 2016 to like 2018, when they were just really struggling and like it had to be Aaron Rodgers or nothing. And then they fired him. They got Matt LaFleur. And although McCarthy has been very good for the Cowboys, but he had such a massive rift with Aaron Rodgers. I think that might be happening with Russell Wilson and just the entire team. I feel like he's lost the locker room, and his play calling is just outdated. And I think I mean this not as a joke. I mean this seriously. I think it's time for Pete Carroll to retire from coaching. He's done.
I'd say I don't think he's gonna retire just because of the success he's had, and his if you look back his college career, he's gonna find some mid-level job in college, especially with all that's gone on. But that's for another day.
Shoot, he might even go to
Oh,
Notre
you
Dame.
question mark?
I have a word for you, albeit I would just ask you, do you think this is a good word to describe the Seahawks? Would you say top heavy is a good word in terms of talent and players?
Oh, very much top heavy. If you look at the roster, like the way, like just from a pure talent perspective, right? We have one of the best wide receiver duos in the league, an a very good running back. Not running back. We have a pretty good running back. Chris Carson, when he's healthy, can be very good. But the linebacker core is elite. We have 2 of the top 15 like tacklers and like guys who generate pressure with Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks. We have 2 good safeties, right, with Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. But then the rest of the team just sucks. Our offense, Dwayne Brown is a very good offensive lineman. I just want to start out there. He's 38 and he's playing like he's 22. He's amazing. But outside of that, I can't tell the difference. Sometimes I can't tell the difference between the Seahawks and a local high school. Like the blocking is terrible. The defense is quite bad. Um, I do want to say this. I used to play Pop Warner a while ago, and we would run the same three coverages like consistently, right? But that's a bunch of kids. The Seahawks do that too. Currently, they lead the league in same percentage coverage snaps with 92%, meaning 92% of all defensive snaps they're staying in the same coverage. So basically, they get picked out, they get destroyed. It's hard to watch. But the only hope is to get rid of Pete Carroll and Ken Norton, because we still have a good roster, ish.
I agree. I think it's time for rebirth by fire, almost
Yeah.
to put it. I don't know, just blatantly.
We'll get into possible
Yeah.
replacements in another day, but let's look
Okay,
at
I think it's
upcoming
time we go over how we did looking at this week and how our predictions fared.
Ooh.
So yeah. So we have a table of all the picks we made, and we can compare that obviously with the actual results.
So this is the predictions of the.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So okay, we do not have a table of that. My bad. I am thinking of something else. But just to discuss really quick, Abby in his picks went 5 and 7. I went 7 and 5, and Tarun went 10 and 2.
Oh my god.
Let's go.
What did Tarun pick wrong?
He picked the. Let me see. I think he ended up picking the Eagles, and they got upset by the Giants. And then he ended up picking the Chargers, and they got upset by the Broncos.
Dang.
And so the two when he picked wrong were ones that we all unanimously picked. So any ones that he took a risk on, he got right. So good week for Tarun. We'll see how that. See if that's a trend going forwards. Speaking
Yeah.
of going forwards, here are our predictions for week 13.
Buttery smooth transition right there, Audrey.
Oh yes.
Starting off with Thursday night, the Cowboys and Saints. Coming off of two bad Thanksgiving games where they lost in a heartbreaking fashion. I select the Cowboys. I think the offense is if it can be healthy, they're very good. Amari Cooper is potentially coming back this week, so I do want to
I
see
have.
this offense. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just like directly interrupting you there for no reason. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the Cowboys win this pretty handily.
I will say I have heard rumors that Ezekiel Elliott could be benched this week in order to rest him for the rest of the season and the postseason going forwards. And for a lot of teams that would be concerned, but I think Dallas has one of the best two running back combinations with him and Tony Pollard. So I think they'll be fine with Tony Pollard. It'll
And
be interesting to
CD's
see how
coming
long.
back.
He's a good change of pace back, but I think he's also a 3-down back, so that's good.
Yeah. I also picked the Cowboys. Some reason. From what I've read reports of, the team is still in a good place mentally, in which like in past years they would have checked out. Ezekiel Elliott probably will rest. I think that's just a smart move at this point. Tony Pollard is more than capable to take the load for a couple games. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper is back, so that receiving core is back to full strength. I think Cowboys are one of the few offenses that when the defense plays up to the level it can play at and it isn't making stupid mistakes, their passing offense can carry.
Mistakes as in like 4 pass interferences?
Yeah, yes.
Sorry.
Anthony Brown, god damn it. Okay, moving on to some other games. Colts Texans.
Texans. Because they're Texans, they lose.
Jonathan Taylor versus a field of cow shit. Like, what are you gonna pick?
Jonathan Taylor, stop that.
The real pick would be like over under 5 touchdowns on the day for Jonathan Taylor.
I don't think he gets 5 touchdowns again. I think they might rest him just because they don't want to get him hurt. Not
That's
in
true.
the actual game. Like once he gets his yards and his touchdown, to just like sub in Naeem Hines and just. Speaking
Maybe
of
we see
Yes.
deep running back rooms, the Colts are very deep at running back, and they could run anyone.
not the that's one thing we've got to discuss, I guess, is not Tampa Bay, but no one can run against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
That's established. That's just a fact of life. Vikings versus Lions. I think we all picked the Vikings just because obviously Detroit is not a good place. It's like the Vanderbilt of the NFL. It's gonna take a massive overhaul to get them out of where they are.
It's an oddly confident team for not having a win. Because they've come really close.
Oh, they've looked better this year than previous years, but obviously they're still winless through
They're-
11 games.
10-1.
hmm
I feel like the one stings the most.
And this past week, Thanksgiving, they had a brutal, heartbreaking loss, losing by a field goal near the
The
end.
Bears.
Seems like that just every week they lose, and it's not just blowout fashion. It's just it's close, and yet they still continue to lose. So I don't see that pattern breaking. I don't think any of us do. We all pick the Vikings. Next game we have Giants versus Dolphins. Avi, you picked different than me and Tarun. You want to explain why you chose the Dolphins?
Because the Giants, I think, and I say this with some remorse because I actually wanted the Giants to win some games. I think they're the most disappointing team. Well, no, one of the most disappointing teams in the league. Just even though last year they had a top 10 defense, now it's bottom 10. Their offense is stacked, like talent wise, but they suck. Their wide receivers cannot create separation. Their running back is basically sitting at home every year. He's paid to have good quads, I guess. Danny Dimes,
Oh my
even though
gosh.
we love Danny Dimes, um, he he's not very good anymore. He's regressed, if anything. And going up against a Dolphins defense that came up with a very, very dominant win against Cam Newton. Granted, Cam Newton is not, he isn't the Cam Newton that we know, but they still came off a dominant win. This offense is getting it together. Jalen Waddle has really been picking it up. Miles Gaskin has been getting the ball more. I think the Dolphins come out here with a pretty good win. I don't think this propels them into the playoffs or anything, but the Giants aren't really a team you can really confidently pick to win anymore.
Quite honestly, my pick, I didn't see any separation between these teams, so I just picked it based off of, I think the Giants had a more impressive win last week, and so I look to see them translate that into momentum and beat the Dolphins this week.
Yeah. The reason I picked Giants, 2 reasons. One, momentum, like Nate was saying. Two, they sent their offensive coordinator packing, who they placed the blame on for the struggles of Daniel Jones. This past weekend against Eagles, obviously the scoreboard was 13-7. Not great, but when I looked at some of the game film, there's some changes I liked. I think could translate to some more long-term success for the Giants. And that's kind of the reason I picked them against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins have been too inconsistent of a team this year, in my personal opinion.
Fair enough. Moving down to some of our locks, I would assume the Buccaneers and the Falcons. We all picked the Buccaneers.
Just Tom Brady.
Yeah, self-explanatory.
And
Eagles
the front seven, it's
Jets.
just
Yeah,
a
the
really
front
complete
seven.
team.
Would you say the Buccaneers are the best built team in the league right now?
Honestly, just because of their defensive front, yes.
Their front seven is.
I mean, and then you
should
look
be
across their
elite.
team, they have I mean, you think like, oh, they have Tom Brady. Obviously, he's a commodity. You look at the wide receiver room, and is Antonio Brown still injured? Is he?
He's coming back soon.
He's coming back. So they have
Crap.
Antonio Brown coming back. They have Godwin. They have some depth there, and then I mean, then you look at running back, and they have a stud at Leonard Fournette. He's just coming off a 100-yard game. So I think just overall they're complete. Yeah, I think they're good yet again.
Moving on to a surprising lock amongst us. The Eagles and the Jets, we all picked the Eagles. both teams coming, the Jets coming off a pretty good win against the Texans, and the Eagles coming off a 3 interception game from Jalen Hurts and a heartbreaking loss to the Giants.
To speak like you, Obi, Zach Wilson is a bum, in my opinion. He does not look confident in the pocket. A lot of his completions and pass, he had like a barely over 50% completion rating, completion percentage against the Texans, and most of those were just halfback flares or check back routes that were easy, wide open throws. He missed like 3, 4 throws over the middle. His interception was, I don't even know. He like flipped it forward to a guy who wasn't looking at him. Ends up being picked off, obviously, because that's not a good decision. Maybe if Mike White is able to clear COVID test protocol, he should start for them, and so that's why I can see them winning. But honestly, I don't have any confidence in Zach Wilson, and I'd take Jalen Hurts, even though he threw 3 interceptions last week. I'd take Jalen Hurts over Zach Wilson any day.
Yeah, ironically, the problem with Zach Wilson is the problem a lot of people like had with Justin Fields, and the reason he fell down the board in the recent draft, while I still had him at number 2, is that a lot of people were scared about Fields only doing like one read or not doing many reads at all in Ryan Day's offense. Then they failed to realize that like Zach Wilson was throwing against safeties that would be safeties and corners that, in all due respect, would be walk-ons at the schools Justin Fields was playing against, right?
Yeah.
Because I think especially when you're a gunslinger quarterback, I don't know if this matters as much as a game manager, but when you're a gunslinger, I think the talent you're playing against matters a lot.
And it's weird because one of Zach Wilson's biggest merits coming out of college was his arm talent, his accuracy, and as all NFL scouts use this term, his ability to make all the throws. That was his main attribute. He could hit the deep ball, he could throw it over the middle. But you watch him in games now, and he's missing a large number of passes. He had several deep attempts to Elijah Moore and other players that he overthrew or underthrew. He had just simple crossing routes that he missed. I don't know if it's a matter of confidence or
That could
he's
be a
just struggling
multitude of
to
reasons.
adjust.
Like, one, he's coming from a BYU program where like there's a lot of continuity in that program. Like, it's definitely one of the better team cultures within the country, and it's definitely better gelled as a team. He had a solid running game in BYU with Algiers, and which he doesn't have in New York. He has a much better O line. Like the BYU guys, like they're not the most technically skilled, but they're like some beefy boys who will fight.
Some beefy boys, according to Tarun Dudley. Let's quote that.
Shut up, Dave.
Yeah, no. Just overall, Zach Wilson has not impressed. I think he certainly hasn't lived up to his number 2 overall draft position. But moving forwards, Cardinals versus the Bears. What are your thoughts on this?
It's the Bears moving on.
Yeah, I look to see the Cardinals start fast out of their bye week. Chargers,
I'm assuming
Bengals.
Murray's.
Ooh,
You
can say anything.
Oh no, never mind. That's Chargers Bengals. It's a conflict.
Surprised you picked the Bengals.
Yeah, please elaborate there, Tarun.
I think they have momentum coming off of kicking the Steelers' ass. Joe Mixon has good momentum right now. Joe Burrow is finding his groove. Isn't necessarily finding his groove, but he's building a good amount of confidence. And I think the catalyst here is just Joe Mixon, the ability to have a run game against a team like the Chargers that simply hasn't been able to have that consistently throughout the year makes the Bengals the favorites in my eyes.
I would say that Joe Burrow is having a similar year and problem somewhat compared to Baker Mayfield. He's having just average stats, but he has lots of potential. Obviously, everyone's seen what he can do in college. But I would trust Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert with the Chargers. I just think they had a lot of success early in the season, and that impression still sits with me now. So I'll take them, even though I know Joe Mixon is very hot. and has
I'm
been
taking the
performing
Chargers
very
just
well.
because. Sorry, I'm taking
Joe
the Chargers.
Mixon is very hot. Quote that from Nate for Nate.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm taking the Chargers because we look at the last game. They played a Denver defense that's pretty good, and you move on to a Bengals defense that is not very good at all. They're near the bottom of the league. They don't generate as much pass rush. Their corners are not very good. But the same can be said about the Chargers. I think this is quite a toss-up game. It just comes down to who I think can be more consistent. And I think the Chargers, coming off of a divisional loss, need to be more motivated, and they probably will come out guns blazing. This will probably be a shootout. I think you can book it to be at least 30 points from both teams. And really, it's just a flip of the coin. I'm just more confident in Justin Herbert's ability to come back and dominate. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens going forward.
Jaguars.
Jaguars, Rams. I mean, is there much to say? Rams are, they're coming off with a disappointing loss to Green Bay, which was a Sunday Night Football. That was a big matchup. I think.
Urban Meyer ain't it for this year. That's the short answer.
Say what?
Urban Meyer just isn't it as NFL coach, at least for this year. I think he has to change a
NFL
lot
coach
about his
and as a person
philosophy.
in general.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a
Hmm.
I think
weirdo.
his personal life has gone too much into his NFL
He's
ambitions.
made some questionable decisions. I don't think anyone thought he would
Yeah,
get hired, quite
yeah,
honestly.
like it made no sense in my eyes because for one, like I think he'll always be seen as a legendary college coach. Just go to so many different programs, very different parts of the country, and still win. Like
Because
not
of
many
recruiting.
coaches.
That was one of his strengths, recruiting.
Yeah,
So a lot of time you see these
but
extremely
like the
successful
problem
college
with
coaches.
being an NFL coach, like if you're giving crap players, you kind of got to stick with it.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. We had the same idea. That's funny.
Quick
Yeah, but the
prediction
Rams are
though.
looking.
Quick prediction on the Rams game. I think Stafford throws for four plus touchdowns. I think that's something you can, if you were someone who's a betting person, you could look towards that. That Jaguars secondary, they had young talent and then they proceeded to trade it. So it's literally just like shares. So I would really think you could put money on Stafford throwing at least 4 touchdowns. Maybe Odell gets a touchdown. I think one that's really possible is Cooper Kupp surpassing the 100 receptions mark. Currently, he's at 92 and leading the league by
I
an
definitely gonna
absurd
pass that.
margin. Yeah,
Yeah, if we're
Let's
making
move on
predictions,
to
I think that it would be good for the Rams to see Odell Beckham have a good game. I think I mean, his role basically now is just to fill in that Robert Woods role that's been opened. I would like to see him get his receiving yards off of more than just a 53-yard deep ball pass, because obviously that's not necessarily indicative of how he plays. If he can get open and run some slants, which is what he's famous for, and really start to be a factor in the short yardage game, I think that would be something that's likely to, at least the Rams will try to make that a factor in this game. So I would bet on that.
I agree. Let's move on to the Washington football team and the Las Vegas Raiders. We all picked the Raiders. I don't know about y'all. The reason I picked the Raiders, I think after they're struggling for multiple weeks, having a huge more dilemma with Gruden, that definitely creates some turmoil within the team. I think having a very good win against the Cowboys with an interim coach brings a lot of confidence back to this team. I think it always becomes like a Freddie Kitchens-esque situation in Cleveland a couple years ago, where the team almost unites behind that situation. And I think they start winning some games, and that starts here.
Mhm. If we're doing predictions, let me get my prediction out of the way, Albie. Daniel Carlson, 15 plus points on the day. I'm joking. He's coming off a great game, and he's been consistent this year. What do you say, Albie?
it's honestly quite a miracle the Raiders are still alive. That locker room, a 30 for 30 needs to be made about that team because you had the Gruden scandal, you had Henry Ruggs going a little too fast.
Yeah,
David Arnett,
Henry Ruggs
Fast.
too.
Ooh.
What do you mean? The hell do you mean a little too fast?
a little too fast.
150 in a 30 zone.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
insane. But David Arnett,
Credit Derek Carr. Credit Derek Carr. I mean, he's
Derek
been
Carr's
at
not even.
Raiders for a long time. He's held them
A
together.
one
He's
month of consistency.
slowly, consistently playing well, and he's maintaining consistency. And extremely tumultuous season. What a word.
For a quarterback that's been the up and coming guy in the league for the last 5 years. Like I think he's finally finding his groove, like realizing that he's not like the most. He's not going to be the technically perfect quarterback. Like embracing more of a leadership role can almost improve his way in a different way.
Yeah,
So
Mm-hmm. Jordan, I'm
fortunately
gonna
he's
have to
already
call you
30.
out. You're making old takes. You gotta come up with some new taglines for their car. I think I've heard that one before. I
uh,
joke.
let's get let's get on to Ravens Steelers. We all pick Ravens. The reason I thought this game should be started, like saying earlier, I have questioned whether the Ravens can keep up with the poor offensive play. I think they win this game just off the defensive dominance against Roethlisberger. Again, and that pass rush against Roethlisberger would be murder on television. But
He'll sit there and then he'll get hit, and then he'll sit there
yeah,
and he'll get hit, and he'll sit there, and he'll get hit.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some beef between Tomlinson and Roethlisberger by the time the season ends, with how the
For the
team is
entire
performing around it.
Pittsburgh fan base.
I mean, he's
Yeah,
gonna retire after this year, most likely. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Or he goes the Brady route and just moves. But
yeah,
I can't see a team
who
really wanting
wants
him.
him?
yeah. Who the heck wants Roethlisberger? Like I wouldn't want that guy in my locker room or like
Not
around my
even in
kids.
Seattle. No, I'm joking. I don't know. Probably not even in Seattle.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that just comes down to a Ravens defense. Lamar needs to be watched out for. The Steelers defense is also pretty good, and seeing how he can attack it and how he can come back from a pretty terrible performance against the Browns is something you should watch out for, especially if you're a Ravens fan, because
Yeah,
this can like mark the start of like a playoff momentum, which is a real thing in my eyes.
I think it'll be good to see Marquise Brown show up. He had a very quiet week last week, but
yeah,
he's been having a good season this year. He's one of their impact players. He needs to start
uh,
showing up as they get
yeah.
closer to the
He's
season.
yeah. Moving on to Niners Seahawks. Me and Avi chose the Niners. Nate chose the Seahawks. I chose the Niners because despite all their injuries, I think the Seattle team is very good at losing, which is a very shitty thing to say, obviously, but like it's facts. And also, I know I'm placing a lot of emphasis on momentum this episode, but I think that holds true, especially for a 49ers team that has shown it has some metal. Like it's willing to be. It's shown that it can be resilient. It it still won despite many injuries against the Vikings team last week. That isn't amazing by any means, but it's a respectable team. Garoppolo is playing decent enough. Eli Mitchell showed up last week when Deebo Samuel couldn't. Brandon Ayuk is actually improved a lot this season. A lot of people thought he was a bust, and that's kind of my
I'll take
take
my
there.
take because I'm different. I mean, this is a divisional rival game in Seattle. I know that their team's not necessarily having the best success, but I think that they should be able to show up and show out the fan base at this game. Deebo Samuel being out for the 49ers is huge. I think that is massive. You look at him, he's having a monster year. I think he's already over 1,000 yards in the season. He's their entire offense, and then he's almost like Adrian Peterson. They Not Adrian Peterson, Cordell Patterson. Why am I saying the wrong names? He's like Cordell Patterson. They've shifted him to running backs these past couple of weeks, and he's produced there. So he's kind of like their do-it-all player. And when you lose someone like that, someone you can just rely on in the offense, it hurts a lot. And so I do agree that Brandon Ayuk's been playing well, and Elijah Mitchell had a good game, but I don't know how consistently they can perform.
I
Then
mean,
so I'll just this is maybe a
you're the
little
one
bit of
picking the
college football
Seahawks,
fan.
man.
This may be a little bit of the college football fan in me picking this game, but I'll take the home team in the infamous Seattle home environment.
That infamous environment has been kind of shit this year. I'm sorry. I've watched some of the games. It ain't the same.
Honestly,
This is yep.
I think even if you look at this matchup wise, right, DK should ideally have a very good game. He is matched up against Jason Verrett's like third torn ACL. The corners are not very good on the Niners. Ideally, Russell Wilson should have, like, just on a matchup perspective, he should be able to come back and, like, get a big game from his wide receivers. But I don't trust the Seahawks scheme anymore. That's not even coming from a fan. Just even watching it from a neutral perspective, the play calling can be quite confusing. And outside of the Seahawks offense, right? If the Niners' amazing run game with like finding randoms and like third stringers and making them rush for 100 yards and like 2 touchdowns, I think they can still maintain that even though they missed their biggest playmaker in Deebo Samuel. I don't think this would be a dominant win. It'll probably be a low scoring game, like 17-14 or something close to that. But I think the 49ers come off of top just because right now they're a better roster, and even though injuries have been really bugging them, they still have an amazing front four and can shut down Seattle's offensive line. That's pretty mediocre.
Yeah. Moving on to Browns Chiefs. I think there's
Broncos
not really
Chiefs.
much debate here. Me and Avi chose the Chiefs. Nate chose the Broncos. I think there's just a matter of who shows up less inconsistent. I don't think there's much more. Moving on to the last game.
Wait, Nate,
Pats.
why did you choose the Broncos?
I don't know. I just have a feeling. I have a feeling about Teddy Bridgewater. I've been doubting him all season, yet he's been having a fine season. I think Melvin Gordon will have a good game, and we'll see.
Yeah, that's fair. Moving on to Pats Bills. So we all chose the Pats across the board. What do you think the Bills have to do to win this game?
I think they need to get Dawson Knox involved. They got to get Devin Singletary involved. They have to have a complete offensive showcase in this game, because I think this Patriots offense will be able to eclipse 30 points, and the Bills, an offense which has been known for their scoring capacity, has not necessarily been that the past couple of weeks. So they'll have to show up. But it's weird to say this. It's really weird to say this. I trust Mac Jones a little bit more than I do Josh Allen right now.
Looking at these two teams, the Patriots and the Bills have one of the better secondaries in the AFC East and in the league in general. The Patriots we expected to be a very good defense. The Bills not so much, but they've been very good. Mac Jones has been able to lead this Patriots offense very well. He's been quick and decisive, making very, very good reads. But I think the way the Bills win this is just to get the ball first and score and score. Come out guns blazing. Even like literally invite the Patriots to a shootout and say, if you can't, we're not going to play. You can even say, like, we're not going to play any defense. Try to score on us, or just try to stop us. That's the only way they can really.
Dare Mac Jones to throw the deep ball.
Yeah, dare Mac Jones to throw the deep ball, make him uncomfortable. Let Josh Allen get into his bag. The way the thing I would need to see for them to win is like Josh Allen throws 4 touchdowns. He's able to keep the picks to a low number. He's making smart throws. That's really what I would need to see from them. They are in Bills Nation right now. They're not in Foxdale, but I do think the Patriots win just because I feel like that defense can neutralize. Because even if you look at the Saints game, Josh Allen did not play super hot, throwing 4 touchdowns but 2 interceptions.
I would agree with what y'all have been saying. I think in order for the Bills to have a shot at winning, you had to force Mike Jones to have to be a baller, and like that's not the role he is as a quarterback. With all due respect, he's a very good quarterback. He's not
There yet.
gonna at that point in his career where he can just carry a team. So I'm saying Patriots. I think that offense has been very consistent as of recently, and I think Josh Allen. I think two of the main drivers for his interceptions is one just some poor technique, and two just sometimes the pressure. Sometimes the Bills offensive line, while it can be very good, makes some very silly mistakes. With Matthew Judon on the other end of the line, that's going to prove costly if they can't at least keep Judon under some control.
I don't know. It's weird because coming out of college, I did not trust Mac Jones. I thought he was I thought he didn't deserve to be in New York as a Heisman finalist. I thought he was a product of the talent around him rather than an actually good quarterback. And you know what? I'm gonna say it now. I think I was wrong. He has been, and I know he's a system quarterback. Let's say that he landed the perfect spot for him with Belichick.
We gotta give
You know, pro
himself
style
props
offense,
too.
but
So.
I don't really want to call him a
he
system
has been able to run
quarterback.
this offense extremely well. I mean, New
You gonna give
England came
Steve
with
Sarkisian any credit, Nate?
who?
Sark.
I'm not aware of who you're talking about.
Honestly, okay. I think coming out of the draft, Mac Jones is regarded as the most pro-ready quarterback out of the bunch, and I think landing with the Patriots is the perfect place for him to develop. I don't know his ceiling at the moment is quite unknown because I don't want to do what most of the media does. But the last time we had a quarterback who thought was a system quarterback in New England, his name was Tom Brady, and he's one
We
of the
don't say
greatest
that. You
quarterbacks.
can't say those words. You can't say
Yeah,
those words.
exactly. So like we really can't. We don't know what Mac Jones can do. He displays many of the same confidences in the pocket. He's very
Mm.
elite in the short and mid game, and as he develops, we can see where his ceiling takes him because he can either end up like an elite quarterback or just Jimmy Garoppolo with an Alabama connection. But
Yeah. Let's move
Mhm.
on to some other
Yeah,
categories.
let's move on. Continue on the Mac Jones topic. Would you guys say that Mac Jones is a front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
yes,
Yeah, by far.
By far. That's interesting. You wouldn't argue for anyone like Jamar Chase?
I think it's down between Jamar Chase and Mac Jones, but at this point, it's kind of a quarterback award unless the wide receiver. And I say like a wide receiver has to put up the same numbers, even though Justin Jefferson had the best rookie wide receiver year in the last like decade or two. But I do think Mac Jones, especially with the wins that he contributes to this team, he definitely takes it home.
I mean, Devontae Smith's also having a very good year. Kyle Pitts having a decent year. You don't see any of those guys being contenders?
Modeling against Kyle Pitts, he hasn't really had like a huge breakout game yet. Which is what he was known for when he was at Florida.
Oh, I know
Devontae.
about that. I know about that. He had
Yeah.
a 3 touchdown performance against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Oh.
But to be fair, Ole Miss defense last year was like butter.
Oh, I know, but it's just terrifying when you see someone who's 6'4" matched up against a corner he's 6'4", like 270, like not 270, but 250. He's built, massive, and quick, and I thought he was going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year going into the season, just from
Yeah, I
watching
don't
him play in
think.
college. I mean, because I know that there's always this stigma that you don't trust rookie tight ends, and that size and speed don't translate into the NFL, but tight end's different almost because it's like you're matching up differently because you're able to beat linebackers with speed and you're able to beat corners with size. I think Kyle Pitts was like the perfect embodiment and combination of speed and size. He's just a freak athlete, and that's just the easiest way to put it. So I saw him. I mean, he's not having a bad year. He's performing pretty well. He has 661 passing yards, and what? How many touchdowns does he have? Oh, he only has 1 touchdown in the year. That's brutal. But obviously, he's not in the most successful offense.
Real
Yeah.
quick tangent about
Actually, no
Kyle
way.
Pitts. Sorry. But real quick tangent about Kyle Pitts. Coming to the draft, I think a lot of guys I've seen, and myself included, did compare him to a Julio Jones type like prospect, even though he was a tight end. And you can see it now, like later in the season, he's lining up in the slot, he's lining up on the boundary, he's lining up everywhere. He's being used like a wide receiver. I see him running like deep post on the outside and then going and running like flats in the slot. Like he's a versatile weapon, but unfortunately, Mac Jones is just better. Like he's just amazing this year.
Hmm.
Move on to defensive rookie of the year. I think this one is kind of unanimous as well. I'm gonna put my money on Micah Parsons.
Mm,
Yeah, I do agree.
Micah
Michael
Parsons.
Parsons.
Yeah,
9 sacks so far as a rookie.
I mean, no one else is putting up numbers like he is. No one's as big of a name as he is.
yeah. He's no one really. It's been a tough year for rookie defenders. J.C. Horn with the massive injury. Patrick Surtain has been picking it up, but outside of that, we really haven't seen anything from anyone. But moving on
I think
to
Patrick Surtain could probably be a dark horse, but Micah Parsons is just having a very good year. I mean, if you watch the Thanksgiving broadcast, announcers were absolutely gushing over him and talking about how well he's played for the Cowboys this year. So yeah, moving on. What award would you like to discuss next, Avi?
Defensive Player of the Year. My vote goes to Myles Garrett, who currently leads the league in quarterback pressures and sacks with 24 and 14 respectively. Does anyone have anyone to contest with?
I-
Just
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm just looking at some stats.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I don't follow the NFL well enough to make an educated pick. I'll go based off of just like general hype and would say Myles Garrett, maybe a TJ Watt, somewhere in there maybe. But yeah, I'm not gonna make a
Isn't
pick.
Trayvon Diggs an argument?
Trayvon Diggs, that's
Trayvon
funny.
Diggs is an interesting argument because he has 8 interceptions now. He's kind of slowed down, but
Picks don't lie, though.
at the same time, J.C. Jackson had 10 last year.
He has 7 this year too.
Yeah, he's been balling. It's just kind of
I don't
insane.
know.
Like to
I'm
think
just a little bit of a Cowboys fan in you, Tarun.
I think outside
Yeah.
of Myles Garrett though, there's only person you could pick is T.J. Watt, really in my eyes. But then
Maybe Matt Judon's a dark horse.
Matt Judon,
I'm not sure the
yeah,
stats are there.
Matt Judon, yeah, you're right. Matt Judon does have the stats too. Correction from earlier, Myles Garrett does not have 24 QB pressures. He has 24 solo tackles, but Matt Judon has 22, and he's only 2.5 sacks behind Myles Garrett, despite not playing as much.
Moving on to probably the second biggest award. What?
Judon has 12 sacks.
He has 12 sacks. On NFL.com, it says 11.5.
Yeah,
That's
11.5.
interesting. Yeah, I still think it goes to Myles Garrett. He's been amazing this year.
Moving forward to Offensive Player of the Year, my pick would be Derek. Wait.
No.
Sadness. I would have picked Derrick Henry. It's a shame. It's a true shame that he got injured. He was having an insane. Here's a stat for you. He is still the number 2 running back in the league in rushing yards, having only played 8 games. He has 937 yards, and the only person with more rushing yards than him, I think you can both guess.
Shut the Taylor.
But that's insane. That's absolutely ridiculous that that he's second in the league, having been out for what, 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
It's just
currently
sad to
he
see
is top 5 in every single rushing category without playing in such a long time.
It's a shame. I think he still has the highest yards per game average, 117.
Going back on track though, who would you pick as your Offensive Player of the Year?
I think there's probably 2 ways you look at this. You can look at players who have quote unquote earned it, who are having great seasons. You could look at running backs. I think this is hard because it's probably gonna be a quarterback. It's a quarterback award. Most awards are quarterback awards.
But
I'd like
Offensive Player of the Year is usually like that one guy who's not a quarterback that could be an MVP or just having a really good year offensively.
Oh, that's true. Well, I mean, you could say Cooper Kupp. Obviously, he's going nuts. He's consistently going nuts. You could say Jonathan Taylor. Maybe Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's having good. Yes, he's having good. He's having a good season. You talk about Nick Chubb, he's been hurt, and he still has top 5 in the league in rushing yards. Wide receivers, I don't see anyone outside of Cooper Kupp winning it. I just don't think Devontae Adams hasn't been that. I mean, he has 1,000 yards, but he's not been that guy. Debo, he's been good, but just Cooper Kupp's stats are off the charts. They're ridiculous. So if anyone were to win it as a wide receiver, it would be him.
Just like a projection or a stat, Cooper Kupp is currently projected to finish with 142 catches on around 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns. For reference, the most receptions ever by a wide receiver was Michael Thomas in 2019 with 143. And also, I'm pretty sure the wide receiver receiving record is not that far from where Cooper Kupp would be. I think it's
That
like
sounds like a stat we need to look up.
I'm
What
doing
about
that right
Matthew
now.
Stafford?
For offensive player, I don't think he wins offensive player of the year.
He's on
I think
he's on track to exceed 5,000 yards.
you can
That
make that
might be
argument
something.
about Derek Carr.
Oh,
Still leading the league in passing yards. Yeah, maybe rushing yards too.
oh,
But
I found the stat. The most yards for a wide receiver is 1,964, set by Calvin Johnson in 2012. Cooper Kupp is projected to finish with 1,912.
Well,
So
but Nate, to counter the Derek Carr versus Matthew Stafford point, Derek Carr has 17 touchdowns and 9 picks versus Stafford's 27 touchdowns, 9 picks.
oh yeah, I see. I think that Matthew Stafford would probably be more of
In the
an
vote.
MVP runner-up. That's why I would see him as. And then I think we all know who MVP will likely end up being. I guess if Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl and he can't win the MVP, Stafford would
It's not
win.
if, Nate, it's when.
God dang it, man. My bad. I forgot. Thought we were trying to entertain possibilities, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
Let's be honest. Tom Brady doesn't go to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl goes to Tom Brady. Like,
okay, but here's
He
the
just kind of
thing.
cruises. He's on like autopilot the whole season. Then playoffs hit, he's like, wait, it's
that
time.
must
Okay,
be.
here's the thing though, right? Even though Tom Brady's numbers are statistically insane at the moment, do you think voter fatigue could play in, and it goes to someone, let's say like, oh, Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford, because there's
Do
definitely hype behind those two
do
quarterbacks.
If you're,
do I have
we're
an
not even,
example for you, Abby? Do I have an example for you? This is not necessarily related to football, but it's a good example of awards and quote unquote voter fatigue. The Ballon d'Or is the award
Oh my God, not
awarded
that.
to the most
Yeah.
Leo
successful
Messi.
soccer player in the world for a given year. Robert Lewandowski. And this is a name you probably don't know if you're a football fan, but he's a soccer player who
Out of
currently
Poland.
is in the past year. A soccer game is 90 minutes, and he's averaging a goal every 60 minutes. Think about that. In any given game, he is expected to score 1.5 goals. At the top tier of professional soccer and all of the major 5 soccer leagues in all of professional soccer, he led scoring. And yet, who wins the Ballon d'Or? Lionel Messi, 7th
Messi.
time. It's just an example of like, there's no such thing as voter fatigue. If anything, it's the other way around. I don't
Messi
think
won
voter
it
fatigue is a
enough.
great argument. Messi probably should not have won this award. It should have gone to Lewandowski.
Messi himself admitted that he probably shouldn't have won it.
Yeah. So there's an
Also, it
example.
seems that Lewandowski's trying to get over to Madrid. So,
Yeah, but that's whole different type of rumors and stuff. It just shows that like,
Yes.
if anything, voters will never get tired of giving Tom Brady awards.
This would be, I think, Tom Brady's like 4th MVP. Oh yeah, it would be his sixth. No, hold on. I think it would be his
Weird
4th or
because like
5th MVP.
it's weird because if you win the Super Bowl, you don't get MVP. It's just
Or if you
strange
win the MVP, you don't win the Super Bowl.
because you can't. Yeah.
No, because it's just kind of a curse. Okay, he
it's
has.
been it would have been 5 years since he won MVPs.
Has it been that long, really?
He last won in 17.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he hasn't won Offensive Player of the
Oh
Year
yeah,
since
he has
10.
3 MVPs right now. It would be his 4th MVP.
He hasn't won Offensive Player of the Year since 2010.
He has more Super Bowl MVPs. He has 5 Super Bowl MVPs. That's kind of interesting.
Mm,
He has more Super Bowls than MVPs, Offensive Player of the Years, Comeback Player of the Years, and Comeback Player of the Year combined.
interesting. Well, last but not least, the coach of the year. Who would you guys say really stands out to you guys from this last year?
Oh
Hmm.
my.
I'll
I
tell you
don't
for a
even
fact
know.
it's not Pete Carroll. I'll tell you for a fact it's not Pete Carroll.
Interesting. Are you sure?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, this is kind of an obvious choice. I'll say Cliff Kingsbury. I think, and this is probably, again biased because of my college football fandom. Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech is not a great coach. I mean, he led a mediocre Texas Tech program. He comes to the NFL and he builds a great program. They're a well-rounded team. I mean, granted, he did have Kyler Murray to build off of, but I mean, you look at their success this year. It's only his second year, or is it this third year by now?
It's his
I'm not
third year.
sure. It's his third, yeah. But he's had a great season. You know, Cardinals are a well-rounded team. Have a shot at the playoffs. Depending on how far they get into the playoffs, I think he's a good candidate for it. Who do you guys see?
I think Zach Taylor would kind of have to be in the argument because I think there's a lot of skepticism about him in the past couple years with the Bengals. A lot of inconsistencies. He's brought good talent into the team. He's led some solid development along the O line. It's a 7-4 team. Because remember, Coach of the Year isn't always about best record. Always about like the best transition as well.
Mhm.
How did you improve the team that given year? I think Zach Taylor has the best argument within the improvement category.
Honestly, I would probably put it in between Zach Taylor and Cliff Kingsbury, with some respect to Mike McCarthy, maybe, but like I don't think he deserves it as much as like a Zach Taylor or Cliff Kingsbury would. I think Kingsbury wins it though. I think the Cardinals finish with the best record in the league as they are set to play the Bears, Rams, Lions, Colts, Cowboys, and Seahawks. I
Mhm.
realistically see them only dropping 2 of those games at most, so they would still finish like 12-5 or 13-4, which is good enough to finish at the 1 or 2 seed, depending on like how the Packers play. And I say that as the Packers are probably gonna have a pretty good stretch of games, but I do think that Cliff Kingsbury's development as a coach in the NFL was quite surprising, especially seeing how he turned around the Cardinals for a little bit. So I think he is my vote for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and you look at this. Look at this stat. Through talking about like improvement between years. Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals have already surpassed their win total from last year with 9 wins. They were 8-8 last year
Damn.
in the regular season, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that's a good job by Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. You could also see some like potential people who could rise. Like I think if someone like a Vic Fangio leads the Broncos to the playoffs, I think they would have to be in the running because that's not an amazing Broncos team talent wise.
I just don't think they've had that marked success to merit having him in discussion
Yeah,
for the award.
that's a fair point.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, obviously, we never know what could happen going forwards.
Yeah,
There's
I'm
still a
looking
lot
at
of
the
football
Bucks
left.
remaining schedule to see.
Yeah, there's still a lot of football left to play this season, and so we'll see going forwards.
Yeah,
But
and the Bucks could
yeah,
easily finish 14-3 too. So if the Bucks finish 14-3, does that just automatically become Arians' award?
I
no,
don't think so.
if
I
you look
don't
at them,
think
I
so.
mean, you look
Or
where
do
the
you think
Bucks were
or do you think
last year.
the committee for that award kind of recognizes that like Arians is kind of on in the passenger seat making sure that Tom Brady drives
Bro,
the
they,
car
they, they,
fairly
they literally
normally?
just won a Super Bowl. I doubt they'd give him Coach of the Year again
Yeah, I was about to
over
say
like
like
Cliff Kingsbury, who probably was a worse coach, but you know that turnaround is
Hasn't
more
put,
important. But I think that should conclude it for today.
yeah. Thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Triple Option Podcast. I'm your co-host Douglas, along with Nate Autry and Avi Ningari. Please tune in Friday as we'll be tuning in early on Friday as we will be predicting NFL I cannot talk to them. My apologies. Please
You're good,
tune in
Tarun.
around 5 to 6 p.m. Friday, where we talk about college football and predicting conference championship games. Until then, this is Tarun Douglas signing off for the Triple Option Podcast. God bless.
Don't forget
Like
to
and
like
subscribe,
and subscribe.
please.